If there's one thing that Dragon's Crown is known for, it's the exaggerated art style. At least that is what people who haven't played the game will say. One look at the sorceress and the Amazon is all some people need to make up their minds on this game. These designs caused some controversy when the game was first released back on the PS3 in 2013. If it was released today, who knows what people would say. There might be riots in the streets. I would argue that Vanillaware has produced a work of art here that is incredibly beautiful, and the publicity might have drawn some people away from the game who might otherwise have liked it. If you like fantasy, action RPGs, and beautiful character and background art, it's hard to see how you could hate a game like this. The truth is that Dragon's Crown is a surprisingly deep game, and the world feels both interesting and familiar. The reason for this is that the game was influenced by a lot of different fantasy properties, and among them are the tropes from the swords and sorcery genre, inspired by Conan the Barbarian, as well as games like Dungeons & Dragons, Tower of Doom, Knights of the Round, King of Dragons, and Golden Axe. Take the level design for example. You have your classic fantasy forests and castles, but you also have a tower that looks like depictions of the Tower of Babel, a cave with a ghost pirate ship, a fortress under siege, and the Castle of the Dead. While at first glance most of these levels just have you walking from left to right and slaying monsters, there are a lot of extra things thrown in that make each level feel unique. Also, like with any good fighting game stage, the backgrounds here tell a lot of the story. There's so much detail and things happening that you can imagine people and monsters living there, making each level feel distinct. The background designers have really gone to town here. The only complaint I have is that I would like to have seen more levels. There are 9 with 2 exits each, but the game is so fun, I would love to spend even more time with it. The team even wanted to include extra areas like ancient Egypt and the level based on the Sengoku period, but they were forced to cut back due to time restrictions. I would have loved to see these areas in Dragon's Crown Pro when it was released, but unfortunately it didn't happen. A lot of the inspiration for Dragon's Crown's characters also come from other fantasy works, like those of Frank Frazetta, including his work on Conan the Barbarian. Older Dungeons & Dragons art also played a part naturally, as Tower of Doom was a big part of the reason why the creator, George Kamitani, wanted to create this game. One thing I didn't know is that Kamitani also looked to Akira Yasuda's designs from various Capcom fighting games as inspiration for Dragon's Crown's characters. This makes sense as Yasuda was involved in some of Capcom's beat-em-up games as well, including Final Fight, Captain Commando, and Red Earth. While most other games in the genre offered 3 to 4 characters to select from, Dragon's Crown has 6. The fighter is a huge, broad-shouldered man in full plate armor, holding a sword and a shield and with horns sticking out of his helmet. The character select screen also reveals that he has long hair and a surprisingly youthful face given his build. I was surprised they didn't go with a barbarian instead, but the fighter fits the game well. It might be because the barbarian would look like a taller version of the dwarf. The dwarf might be half as tall as the fighter, but he's just as wide, wearing boots and a belt, a helmet with wings, a short torn cape, a beard, and not much else. The dwarf is a muscle-bound powerhouse of a character. He also has more unarmed moves than the fighter, including the ability to throw dudes around, which never gets old. The female close-range fighter is the Amazon. She has more muscle than any other female character I've seen in any game ever. She wears the quintessential fantasy armored bikini with knee-high boots and gloves, because you need to protect your hands, and because it looks cool. Her outfit looks a bit similar to Tyrus Flare, the Amazon from Golden Axe. The elf is another classic fantasy character. The elf in Dragon's Crown seems to be of the wood elf kind, wielding a bow and wearing brown and green attire. She wears boots that go up to her thighs, a green tunic with a hooded cape covering her braided hair. She is the only female playable character that didn't receive criticism for her design, but she still fits right in with the rest of the cast. She is also very fun to play. I used to think that the wizard's design was kind of bland, but he has grown on me. He wears a black outfit with purple tones, held together by a brown belt. This is contrasted by white pants and gloves with white long hair. This makes him look a lot more youthful than the standard Gandalf type wizard that appears in so many games. This actually makes more sense, as it would be strange if a level 1 wizard was old and experienced. Finally, there's the sorceress. She is definitely one of the characters that has spawned the most fan art and cosplay. She wears a corset, a purple long skirt, flat shoes, and a big witch hat. In terms of design, she looks great. She is also very fun to play, as she is very mobile and has a lot of options, both offensive and supportive. The focus of Dragon's Crown is really on the gameplay rather than the story. This makes sense, seeing that most of the games that Dragon's Crown were inspired by were arcade games. Unlike traditional RPGs, these games didn't have time to focus a lot on the story, as people would usually just play them in short bursts at the time while being in the arcade. Although Dragon's Crown is more of an RPG than the games that inspired it, a lot of the story is told indirectly. The art of the characters, NPCs, monsters, as well as the environment do convey a lot more than what is being told directly. Kamitami himself was in charge of the character designs, but he also drew many of the backgrounds. The sources that inspired Dragon's Crown make it feel familiar, but in a good way. It feels like those old games where you got a glimpse into a mysterious world, but you didn't get everything explained to you. This is part of what made Star Wars work, for example. You don't need to know the intricacies of local politics or how a hyperdrive works in order to enjoy Star Wars. In Dragon's Crown, one of the levels has birds flying off in the distance over abandoned ruins. Another is a large fortress that is under siege, with fires raging in the background. Not all of the fortress is accessible, of course, but you get a sense of scale based on what's happening through the backgrounds and level designs. You can imagine what happens in the other areas, but it's not really explained. Everything fits really well together in Dragon's Crown. Even the people who don't like the art style might warm up to it once they see how the world comes together. From birds in the background to trees moving in the wind, the whole game looks absolutely gorgeous. This style has aged a lot better than other games from the same era. If there's one lesson to take away from Dragon's Crown's design, it's that it's not worth it to compromise on your vision. Who would have thought that a modern version of Tower of Doom would be so good and do so well? Regardless of all the fuss about the character designs, they did work within the game's world. By not pandering to angry people that would probably never have played the game anyway, Kamitami was able to create a game that looks amazing and holds up well to this day. And it will probably continue to do so for years to come. If you liked the video, please give it a like, and for more videos related to Dragon's Crown, check out this playlist.